We can learn a lot from those who came before us, from what classes to take to learning how to build a meaningful career. Today, we're talking to two of the 2026 Outstanding Young Alumni winners about what they've been up to since graduation. All that and more coming up next. Hey Honors Bulls, welcome back to the Honor Roll Podcast, the flagship podcast for the Judy Genshaft Honors College Podcast Network. I'm your host, Riva Gandhi, a fourth year studying biomedical sciences and public health and a proud member of the Honors College. Today, my co-host is Fabiana Requena, a fourth year studying marketing and business analytics. Thanks for joining me.
I'm excited to be here, Riva.
Me too, and I'm so excited for this podcast. As always, we like to start off with one big question. So my question this week is, as we prepare to graduate, what do you want your USF legacy to be?
Oh, that's a tough one. Obviously sad about graduating, but also excited.
It's an emotional time.
It is. As far as my legacy, I have to say working at the Honors College, I feel like I've been here almost 30 years now, and there's been so much growth for the communications and marketing we do for the Honors College, and I think that's really invaluable. Not just growing the social media, which has been a lot of fun, but also just communicating the efforts and showing off all of the cool things that students and faculty do here. Being able to be part of the podcast, I think we are, we've hosted probably the most episodes on here. And I'm excited to kind of leave that behind and, be able to nurture the next generation of marketing student assistants.
Yeah, I'm excited to pass on everything we've done. And I think people don't realize how much work we put in behind the scenes to make it a very presentable package on the outside. So it's been exciting to kind of work through processes and make them better. I think to build on what you said, I think I'd want my legacy to be service and just dedicating my time, not just at the Honors College, but to Tampa Bay as a whole, whether that be through my internships and commitment to public health, but also, giving back to the populations and the people who came here before us. Because I think it's always important to remember not just who we are now, but also where we came from. And who will become. And speaking of that, we're actually very excited to talk to two very accomplished honors alumni, Zita Fletcher and Paul Johannes, who were recently awarded the 2026 Outstanding Young Alumni Award. Stay tuned.
What if the highlight of your college experience took place halfway around the world? With the Judy Genshaft Honors College, study abroad can be a part of your academic journey no matter your major. Honors College offers unique study abroad opportunities plus funding that can make international travel more affordable. Imagine learning the art of ceremonial matcha in Japan, researching marine ecosystems in the Bahamas, and exploring city life in South Korea. Honors students are building connections, expanding their horizons, and making lifelong memories. Are you ready to start your next adventure? Visit our Honors website to explore our programs, connect with your Honors advisor, and start planning your study abroad experience today.
Welcome to the Honor Roll Podcast. Today we're catching up with 2026 Outstanding Young Alumni recipients Zita Fletcher and Paul Johannes, 2013 and 2016 USF Honors graduates respectively.
Zita Fletcher, who earned her degree in interdisciplinary social sciences, has built an incredible career as an author, journalist, and a historian. She has the distinction of being the first woman to lead Military History Quarterly and Vietnam magazines.
And Paul Johannes is a submarine warfare officer in the U.S. Navy. He leads a department of 75 highly trained officers and sailors in the safe operation and maintenance of a nuclear submarine. Zita and Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
We're so excited to have you here. I guess to start off, congratulations to you both. How does it feel to, be able to come back after all these years and see the campus?
I'm really, really excited. It's a big honor, and I could never have imagined something like this happening when I was a student. So it's a real honor. It's very exciting, and I love being back. I love seeing the changes to the campus. It's still just as beautiful, just really different from how I remember it.
Yeah, it's an incredible program, an incredible opportunity to come back, share some of our experiences, and hope to start some of that, ignite someone's career, someone's path. and to give back to the community that's given so much to me, and I'm sure to Zita as well, because this is really where you form those bonds and form that catalyst that kickstarts your career in whatever direction. So walking around campus, seeing all the new residence halls, all the new facilities, all the new buildings, mixed in with the old of going past the Allen building where I studied when I was in the Honors College, or even to the MSc, having the ability to see how much the university has grown and how far we've progressed. Receiving this award has really been that retrospective journey for me, because I've been forced to look back at, hey, here's where you came from, here's how you've grown up, and to see, okay, here's where I've gone, and celebrate and be celebrated for what I've accomplished and what all of our colleagues that are being honored today have accomplished. It's a really special time.
I think you guys have both accomplished a lot, and we're very happy that you were able to come back and receive this award, because you've given a lot to not just the USF community, but the world, and I think it's important to be recognized for it. But looking back at your time on campus, what were some of your first memories when you think of your journey as students?
It's a whole lot of things for me. I just remember most of all how peaceful the campus is. Just, walking around under the palm trees and having time to study, and then hanging out in the old Honors College lounge. I know everything looks so different now, but back then it was just like super cozy, and I used to spend hours just studying and working in there. There were also a lot of different events going on at the time that I used to like to pop into, just different things going on around campus. So it's just great to be back again.
Yeah, and it's been, it's funny that you mentioned walking around under the palm trees and the peacefulness, because that's one of the things that drew me to USF to begin with. I remember, coming on a tour my senior year of high school and noticing all the shade and how small the campus felt despite being a large university, and going to some of the other state schools and seeing, being beaten down by the sun, and it really drove me to come to this place. And from showing up and participating in Bull Hall as a freshman, living in the Honors LLC, and getting to know my colleagues and fellow students, and adjusting to life here, getting involved, getting some mentorship from some of the awesome faculty in the Honors College at the time, getting to experience and work with everyone during that process, and that's really what I hold dear.
Yeah. Well, we definitely agree with you. We both love campus life. I like that, kind of the center of campus. You can't really drive through it, so it's very focused on the students and kind of walking around. I really like that part of campus. So Zita, when you were here, you studied German, international studies, criminology, kind of a lot of things. How did USF encourage you to think outside the box when you're combining all of these different interests?
Well, that's what really brought me to USF. I liked it that you were allowed to, be your own person here, and that it was an option, especially within the Honors College, to combine different interests together. Like, there wasn't a real set cookie cutter sort of, path that you needed to follow, and that appealed to me a lot personally. I saw examples at the time on the website of other students at the Honors College who had combined these really different interests like robotics, different languages together, and really made something of their own, and that really appealed to me a lot. I think there's also a lot of pressure on students just to conform with one thing. Oh, what are you going to do with that? I used to get people asking me a lot, what are you going to do with all this? Well, it wasn't really clear to me at the time, but I followed what I loved, and I was allowed to do that here, and it really paid off. So, yeah.
And I think that's something really important that you just said there, of being able to combine random, seemingly random off the wall things and be yourself. And one of the courses that I took my first semester was on being authentic, taught by Ben Young. And so it was really challenging those how you're conforming to the norms and how you're going to react to that, and making the conscious choice to be yourself. Because far too often here we come in, you're getting the highest performers who are used to being the top of their class or the top of that cohort, and you come into this mixing pot where you have the ultimate freedom and pull yourself from that narrative, and you have the ability to decide, hey, how am I going to shift it to be myself, not just go be the doctor or the lawyer or the politician, but to be Zita Fletcher or Paul Johannes. And that's really important to not just chase the accolades, but to chase the experience and the learning that comes from those trials and tribulations.
The Honors College does really support the ability to think outside of the box. Zita, how were you able to kind of combine those degrees in your future?
Well, I really stuck with my writing. My writing has been a strong point, and I pursued my interest in German and in historical research while I was working with different kinds of jobs and pursuing journalism. And then eventually I just decided I'm going to focus on what I'm really good at, what I'm interested in military history, and focus on my writing and really bring that out. And I think that was a really good decision, just to really make a go of it. And it worked out. So, I mean, I've written a lot of articles. I'm now published by Pen and Sword, doing books. And so my advice would be to just follow your interests, even if you have to do it on the side for a little while before you can fully focus on them. Like, don't give up. Like, keep focusing on those things, and it will pay off eventually.
Is history something that you were always interested in, like from a young age, or is something that you kind of developed in college?
I have always been interested, like, in history, especially military history. Like, I just love stories of, like, courageous people, like, from World War II, watching documentaries. I mean, Vietnam, different periods of time. There are always so many interesting human stories of people that, you know, beat the odds and achieved a lot. And I just really find that inspiring. So that's always been there, and I love to write. So I just really love to write about those things and bring those stories out.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I'm so happy that you were able to kind of combine your passions in that way. It's sometimes hard to do, so that's very exciting.
It all worked out. So, like, the next time someone tells you, oh, what are you going to do with that? Well, maybe you don't know at the time, but eventually it'll come together. Just stick with what you love.
That's beautifully said.
One of the things that I can remember Dr. Young drawing on a board and talking about Gestalt switches. So, you know,
Yes.
I'm glad that reference hits you well. But you know, having that, you have to keep working until all of a sudden it makes sense. It's this moment of clarity, and there's nothing like it, and then all of a sudden your narrative fits that new path, and that's when you know, hey, I'm walking in the right direction. I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what is meant for me. And I'm sure you felt that with your journalism. I felt that with my military career. And you really feel a calling to something. And the answer shouldn't just be, oh, well, you know, society tells me I should go be a doctor right now. Not to hate on those who have that calling. I've, you know, wonderful friends that are doctors and wonderful friends that are, you know, professors now and developing in their own rights. But you're going to find what fits for you, not what the world thinks fits for you.
Paul, in addition to everything that you did at the Honors College, you were also a USF graduate in business economics. What did your undergraduate experience look like as a student?
I had one of these, you know, tumultuous experiences where I came in thinking, okay, yes, I'm going to medical school. That's why I hit on this a lot. So I started as a chemistry major. I started going through the process and was really starting to enjoy, you know, other aspects of my academic career, going after, you know, the philosophy in the Honors College and studying abroad with the Beyond the Classroom series and experiencing, you know, more outside of the classroom, that it sort of led me to, hey, maybe I don't want to do this. So I then said, maybe I'll go be a lawyer. And then while I was interning, I decided that I wanted to do something more with leadership, based off of my experience in sports growing up and leading my fraternity, participating in the Interfraternity Council, and various aspects of student life here at USF. And I tried to look at ways that I could apply that. And the only thing that I could find that would allow me to apply those skills immediately was joining the military. And I ultimately landed on being a submarine officer in the Navy. And that sort of fits because the first day I showed up on a boat after my initial training, I had 15 sailors that were looking for me for advice and to lead them and be a good role model and a decision maker in that capacity. And then it's only grown from there.
So you would say that a lot of the leadership skills and experience you had was from your time here at USF?
Yes, absolutely. All the experiential learning that occurs here. So getting involved in being, you know, a member of the German Culture Society that formed just after you graduated, being involved in being a residence assistant, all of those experiences all led into what I've done now.
And you mentioned you studied abroad. Where did you go?
Osnabrück, Germany.
It's cool to see that, like, some of the same programs, like, you always wonder, like, oh, I wonder what they used to have, or I wonder what they will have in the future. But it's cool that we still have that program.
Everybody I know who's gone on it really loves it and has taken a lot away from it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it encourages you to have that experiential learning by encouraged to travel, backpack experience. The type of experience that we were having at some stages, and some of my closest friends came from that program, and I keep in touch with them today, and we still talk about how we got lost in Salzburg, Austria, because our paper maps got wet, and found our way home by riding about 60 kilometers on bikes to the place that we were couch surfing. So it's those moments that sort of define that collegiate experience and form those bonds that you carry with you the rest of your life.
I think studying abroad was probably my most meaningful experience in undergrad, just because I also met my best friend before I studied abroad, but we studied abroad together, and we went to Salzburg. And it's funny because when we woke up one morning, it was snowing in the middle of April. And boy, were we not prepared for that.
But you learned a lot.
I learned a lot. We did stare out the window like it was Christmas morning for a good half an hour. But it was probably one of our favorite days of the entire trip. So being impromptu and being flexible with our plans, because we had to reframe that entire day completely. But I think it was such a great learning opportunity, and I'm glad you were able to experience something like that. As you guys kind of finished off your undergrad career, though, can you walk us through what kind of sparked your initial interest in your chosen career paths, and what steps you've taken to get to where you are now?
Well, like I said, I've always been interested in military history and in writing. It's just something that I've always, interest that I've always had. So that was always there. I think the most important step for me was just to persevere in my interests. And also, I would like to say that studying social sciences at USF has made a big difference for me as a historian, because when you're a social scientist, it's all about people. You're really focused on gathering the data, if you will, and the information from people, and having an open mind to people and what they have to say when you are gathering things to study and to write. And I bring that to the table as a historian. I think it really broadened my perspective and made me willing to be open to history that people bring. Sometimes I think in the field of history, people can get a little bit of fixed ideas about certain periods of time, or when it comes to hearing from certain veterans, like Vietnam veterans, for example, they will develop, fixed ideas just based on reading textbooks about how the war really was, and maybe not be as open. But coming at it from a social science perspective, you have to be open, and you should be open to what that person's experience was and what they have to tell you. And I think that experience at USF studying social sciences has made me a better historian in that way.
I'm curious to know, like, what the career path to become a historian is, because a lot of people, like you said, you studied something completely different. You didn't necessarily study history. What did you do out of college, to kind of work your way up to where you are now?
Well, I worked as a journalist, and I improved my knowledge of history, and then I ended up undergoing a master's program in history. So I got my master's from the University of Birmingham in the UK. It was through distance learning, but it's a really solid program. It teaches you all the different aspects of warfare, experience of war, tactics, things like that. And outside of my program, I just really immersed myself in touring old battlefields, historic sites, forts, things like that, reading up on all different kinds of military history is something I'm really passionate about. So I developed a really detailed knowledge base in a pretty quick amount of time, and then just writing about it constantly for my magazines that I worked for. So just developing a whole lot of experience.
No, that's great. And, for me, just going after that leadership aspect, and I've always had an affinity to service and service of others. And finding something that really called to me and fit. I remember being as a little kid, going to all sorts of air shows and watching planes fly and wanting to be a pilot. And then, I ended up being a pilot just in another medium of fluid. As I've gone through and lived my experience living open and living, with a person-centric approach to leadership, and understanding that I'm going to learn something from each of you today, and I'm going to take that and it's going to make me a better leader tomorrow. And, really incorporating that approach to take care of the individuals that are working for me, and, the rest of it's going to take care of itself at that point. So, it's really been a rewarding experience to dive into that and really just drink from the water hose, as Zita said, to, go after with everything that you have, go after that thing that you want.
Did you join the military immediately after undergrad, or what was your route?
It was about 4 months after undergrad, but the route that I took was via Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island, via the NUPOC program, or Nuclear Propulsion Officer Candidate Program. So that's something that's actually available to people from their second semester of their sophomore year, and they pay them at an E6 level, which is a pretty decent amount of pay for a college student, and provide everything that ROTC would provide, except you don't wear a uniform, you don't wake up and do PT, and you go to OCS when you graduate, and continue on to be a nuclear operator. So I had discovered this, or I guess I had found out about it early on, but rediscovered it as I was getting ready to graduate. So then I commissioned in about August of 2017 then. So.
Well, Zita, we'd really love to learn a little bit more about, the inspiring stories that you spoke about when it comes to military history. And then Paul, if you have any stories or experiences that stick out to you from serving in the Navy. So we'd love to learn more.
For me, I just love stories from all periods of war history. I'm really passionate about World War II, but I'm also passionate about other periods like Vietnam, and I've recently discovered some really compelling stories from Afghanistan. And I think one of the biggest privileges for me working as the editor of Vietnam Magazine was getting to work with the veterans and hear their stories firsthand. So I would receive the stories and I would help to edit them and kind of bring them to life in a certain way. And it was really rewarding because a lot of guys, they would stop themselves, from saying things. They would think, I can't write, nobody cares, nobody wants to hear, or it's bad, I don't want to add any more to it. Or sometimes they would think about writing on a topic and think that they couldn't do it, or it was too difficult, like a friend had died and they didn't really want to write about it. They didn't think it would do any good or change anything. And so what was rewarding for me was convincing them to go out on a little bit of a limb, express themselves, write their story, and I would help them put it together and make it better. Improve things where I could, illustrate those stories and bring those out. And that was like a really rewarding experience for me, and what I loved the most about working on that magazine. I learned a lot from them, and it was nice to see a lot of guys get more confidence when they came out and shared their stories, and other veterans got excited and reacted to those stories. And a lot of times it was the guys who thought that they couldn't write, or that, dug their heels in the most, that the stories really resonated the most with the readers. So that was the nicest part of it for me.
I think that's really special because a lot of veterans, some veterans are still alive, and you're getting to make a positive impact on their lives that maybe another period of history, if you covered that, you wouldn't necessarily get to have that impact.
A lot of my stories will come from, driving a submarine on the surface rather than driving submerged. But, the sunrise in the open ocean when it's flat and not, you look at the ocean, you realize how vast and how big the world is. And in the peace of some of those moments, you really get to understand like what life is and how freedom feels or could feel, how open and wonderful the world is. So feeling that first breath of fresh air after being submerged for, 2 or 3 months, and being on mission and, dealing with that constant stress and hyper vigilant state of mind that we live on, because nothing about submarining is natural. everything wants to kill you in one way or another. It's up to us and our safe operation and our ability to survive in that industrial and mechanized world, to live in a place where humans weren't designed to live, and to work through that as a group that really forms a lot of those stories. And the people are really what makes my job special, because they're all highly trained, very intellectual, and for whatever reason, whether it was to provide for their future college education or to provide for their families, joined the Navy and ended up on submarines. And then we bond together as a team and as a family. So we have a very family-centric atmosphere on board. It's a familiarity between myself and my sailors that doesn't really exist in other aspects of the Navy or the Armed Forces, because there's 150 of us in a 365-foot metal tube for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months at a time. And that really makes a special connection similar to, what you make with your classes and cohorts in clubs or societies or in the Honors College as a whole, as you interact throughout your 4 years at USF.
What's the day in the life in a submarine like? Okay,
a day in the life of a submarine. So I will tell this story in 3 ways. So first, I'm going to say a day in the life of one of my sailors. So as a young, I'll say electronics technician, nuclear, you get on board, you go and you work in the service of others. So you generally work as what's called a food service attendant. So you help serve the meals, you help clean up the dishes, and you help out in the galley for about 90 days. So that teaches you, the crew, and helps you learn the crew and the faces in the life and the patterns. So during that period of time, you're working about a 12-hour day doing those tasks and helping out in that field. Then as you go on to qualify your first watch stations, you will spend about 8 hours of your day doing that, standing watch in the nuclear power plant or in control, doing sonar or fire control or driving the ship. And then in your offgoing time, the offgoing 8 hours, you spend time studying systems, learning how the submarine works, learning how everything fits together. And then you have 8 hours for personal time, whether that's working out or sleeping. Then as a junior officer, it's much the same. You're spending your time qualifying, working on divisional admin, and leading and mentoring your sailors and training for that next step. So when you show up, you first start qualifying on the reactor plant. So you go into being what's called an engineering officer watch, which is the supervisory watch station back aft. So from about 6 months on board, you're in charge of a nuclear power plant. So, we have 23-year-olds that are in charge of the nuclear propulsion plant back aft, highly trained, certified, and safe operators working with highly trained individuals. And that leadership and owning your watch team really helps you grow as a leader. And then as you work through the rest of your qualifications and contact manager or office of the deck, where ultimately you're a submarine warfare qualification, where that means that the captain has his complete and total trust in you, and the crew has their complete and total trust in you to operate under all conditions, whether it's in peacetime or in war. And that's something that is very special for any submariner if you ever meet them, their dolphin story or what they mean to them. And it's, when you wear them and when I put on my uniform later tonight and look at them, it really represents that trust that everyone has. Because when I'm driving, there's 150 people that depend on me and my decision making to keep them safe. And it's even more stressful than that when you're, working on the pointer end of the spear and you're getting into, more operational driving and technical ship driving. So that's one of the rewarding parts of your job, and one of the things that bonds us together intergenerationally is that trust and that camaraderie. Can say all of the things that I want to say about running the power plant or driving the ship, but if I don't have my brand new egg hanger or auxiliary man who is driving the ship, if I don't have him who's physically working the helms and planes, I can't drive the ship. If I don't have the brand new CS or a culinary specialist who's working on the mess decks, I can't feed the crew and be productive. So it goes from, the captain all the way down to the newest person on board. We all depend on each other. And if something goes wrong, if there's a fire or flooding or any type of casualty, we're all there. We all run towards it, not away from it. So that's the special thing about that bond and that trust and the qualification process and what that means.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fascinating that you both have very different careers that are related to the military, but in your own different ways. And Zita, you actually, this is something super inspiring. When we were reading up on your bio, you became the first female editor of 2 national magazines, one being Military History Quarterly and Vietnam. What was it like stepping into these leaderships that are traditionally male-dominated?
You do get some pushback a little bit from guys who have been involved in military history longer. There's a lot of older guys involved, and sometimes they can be a little bit skeptical of you and think, what do you know about this, or that they have more expertise than you. So that can be a little bit intimidating, but I have always just persevered, as you probably noticed, in pursuing my interests. So I just don't let that get to me. A lot of guys are super inspiring, especially the veterans who I've worked with. They've been really encouraging to me in following my interests. It was a little bit challenging in terms of the magazines because I had a lot of ideas that I wanted to bring to the table in terms of how to change the content of the magazine. I think some people were a little bit skeptical of what I was doing. Like, they were like a little bit hesitant about, does she know what she's doing? Is this going to work? I went ahead with it, and a lot of the veterans for Vietnam magazine liked the changes that I made, like introduced a tactics section, and then I also introduced like a military humor section, which the guys really liked a lot. They liked being able to share funny stories and things like that. So it's been a really great experience. It's been, exciting to blaze trails. I mean, you're always going to get people who will push back and treat you like you don't really know what you're doing, but just like, don't listen to them, just keep going. And the people who are supportive, the guys who are supportive, like, their support means so much more than anyone who's a naysayer. So just focus on that. That's what I do.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to add that voice, and it doesn't really matter, who you are, what your background is, as long as you're facing the issues and the needs of the community. And have the best interest of those that you're working with at heart, it ultimately shines through. So, it's inspiring to me, Zita, to hear your successes and to hear how that the Vietnam veterans, especially, it seems like, have, latched on and been able to find a voice through you and with your facilitation, because that's a traditionally less vocal group based off of the time period and how they were received when they came home. That I don't enjoy now or I don't have to go through that same hardship that they went through when I come home from a deployment. And on the topic of, women breaking into male-dominated industries, I think it's great. In submarines, we integrated with the first class of females in 2012. And it's only grown from there. So now we are integrated both on the officer and enlisted side on several submarines. And the stories that are coming out of those are great. Like, there's always growing pains when there's change, as Zita talked about moments ago. But the quality of candidate is what comes and shines through. If you can meet mustard, if you can show that you are there and you're ready to achieve and you're ready to work, and you will achieve. And some of the best officers that I know are women, and some of the most inspirational leaders that I've worked with in submarines are women. And in 2026, have these male dominated industries, it's not necessarily, holding true that it can only be men. That's not true. It's often that, the additional perspective and voice and the input of women is super good to our development and makes us a better force and a better society as a whole.
I will say that, sometimes in society we will kind of focus on the negative aspects, like the guys who don't want you in, but there are actually a lot of guys who are open-minded and who are supportive. And I mean, just the support of a guy who's been involved in the, the business, whether it's military history or military career or anything really, just the support and encouragement from people really means a lot, especially when you're a woman trying to break into it. So I think it's worth giving a shout out to the guys who are supportive and who are willing to share their knowledge with you and things like that. It's important to mention that.
For any student that's trying to break into a field or go into a field that's more, difficult, don't take no for an answer. Find a mentor, latch on to what they say, learn from it, learn from your failures, and adapt and keep trying. If you keep trying, you'll break through.
Paul, you were recently also selected as an Olmsted Scholar and will be studying in Denmark. Can you tell us a little bit about your fellowship and what you hope to gain over the next 2 years?
Yes, so the Olmsted Scholarship is a professional military fellowship that is founded by General George Olmsted back in just post-World War II. And he endowed a foundation, and its desire is to inspire and train bold leaders. So he believes that in order to develop as a leader, you have to seek, a broadening opportunity, and you have to learn from other perspectives. So the program is 3 years in length. So the first year is at the Defense Language Institute, where in my case, I will learn Danish to a level of fluency. And then I will move to Aarhus, Denmark, and I aspire and will try to get into a master's program, and will study a social science or liberal arts degree, history, political science, etc., in Danish at a master's level. And so that's designed to help me broaden my thinking and to understand issues as the Danish people understand it and as a European understands it, because much like when you get into your discussions in your IDH classes and your philosophy classes, you start to understand, hey, my truth isn't only the truth, it's someone else's is equally as valid, and the real truth is somewhere between us. And I think that it's an incredible opportunity, and I'm really excited and really thankful that I've been selected as one of 16 scholars and only 4 in the Navy for this year to get this opportunity. And I'm interested to see where it leads me and what perspectives change and how I grow through the process, because my last shore tour, I was stationed in Halifax, Nova Scotia, embedded with the Canadian Navy for 2.5 years. And during that period, I grew exponentially because I was outside of my shell. I was outside of my society that told me that, hey, here's the left line, here's the right line, and you walk between them. And I got to walk a little bit of my own path up there, and I get to fully walk my own path while I'm studying in Denmark and learn and experience and hone those leadership skills and perspectives that's going to make me a more accessible leader to my sailors and show what is possible in this career to young sailors and officers. And I think that that's a really powerful experience.
I will say that it's very important, like no matter what field that you're studying, just to try to engage with a different culture and learn a different language. I mean, it's so important because it teaches you to think differently. It teaches you to appreciate other people. And if you get the opportunity to travel and to live in a different place, it will change you in a good way as a person. Like you'll get to see a whole different environment where everything is different, where you've got to learn to function in a different way. And sometimes that can be really fun and really exciting. And sometimes it can just be hard because you're like, hey, why is nothing working the way that it should be? Like in the US, it should be this way. And so just having to adjust your thinking to how other people live and being able to, be more patient and more open-minded about functioning in a different society, I think that's just great for anybody. And so I would just highly recommend that, like, no matter what area that you're studying, just seek out those opportunities.
Absolutely. I like that about USF. I personally had kind of like a packed curriculum in terms of like my schedule, but I would have loved to, you know, keep taking another language that I was learning in high school. I think, like you said, we both really agree with you in that traveling, learning a different language, immersing yourself with a group of people that isn't like you can be really meaningful to your personal growth, for sure. Well, to wrap up a little bit, what advice would you give to current students who want to pursue a career similar to your own, but might be, you know, facing some inner doubt or some skepticism from others?
I would say definitely persevere, and it might sound kind of funny, but the saying "follow your heart," I believe that it's really worth it. I believe it's true. Even if other people don't really get it, and there's only maybe one or two people who are supportive, just focus on that support and focus on what draws you to your interests and persevere with it, because even if you can't see like a crystal ball how it's going to turn out, it will work out for you. So my advice is to just like be stubborn, stick with it, follow your heart, persevere, and it will work out for you.
Yeah, it's, you know, take a risk. Take that blind leap of faith and go into the direction that you're trying to go. Because if you allow someone to tell you no, you're not going to do it. If you say no, or I can't do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm scared of doing this, then you're never going to do it. You know, if you're scared of jumping out of a plane or skydiving and you aren't willing to get on the plane, you're never going to do it. So allow yourself that opportunity. Give yourself grace. Understand that learning takes time and change is hard and is scary. But if you persevere, you find a mentor, you're going to find that thing that fits for you, and it's going to make sense when you find it. And you're going to have to try different things until you get there. If you show up on day one and say, I'm going to do this, and you don't allow yourself any grace to explore, you're going to probably do what you set out to do, but you're going to be miserable doing it. So what's the point?
Also, I think it's worth noting that you're not going to see down the line opportunities that can come up for you. I mean, you can have no way of predicting those things. So you shouldn't limit yourself thinking, oh, I'm never going to get the chance to do this, or I'm never going to use this, or it's not practical. I mean, because you can't see the opportunities that will come up. So my advice is just to, believe in yourself, invest in what your interests are. And if you're not really sure, explore new things and spend that time investing in yourself, because opportunities could come up for you where you could really do something that you love, and you will have the opportunities to use those interests and use those skills that you wouldn't have if you just limit yourself and think, oh, it's never going to happen. So definitely explore things that you're interested in. And if you really are passionate about something, or even just curious and getting into it, just go with it. Like, see where it takes you, and it will work out.
And never stop learning. Never stop reading. Never stop exploring. And you'll find everything you need.
That's beautiful.
Great advice.
To wrap up, we would love to know what's next for you. So Zita, is there any upcoming book projects that you're excited about?
I am going to be working on a World War II book about the Battle of the Bulge. So it was the focus of my master's thesis research. It's taking me a little bit of a while to pull together, but that's coming up down the line. And then I've got some other book projects on the back burner as well. So multiple book ideas churning. But definitely there will be a World War II Battle of the Bulge coming up.
That's so exciting. We can add it to our bookshelf.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And Paul, do you have any additional plans or long-term goals in addition to the Olmsted Scholars?
Yeah, so the major focus right now is on perfecting my Danish and going through that program, but it's all oriented at going to have command at sea. So it would be an incredible honor to show up to a submarine one day and say, this is my ship and this is my crew, and to lead them through whatever it is that we're asked to do at that time. So the ultimate goal for most of us is that. So to get there, I have my scholarship program, and the executive officer tour is the second in command, and then going up to take the main stateroom and the head of the ship. So to be a commanding officer is ultimately the goal.
We wish you the best of luck, and we're excited for what the future holds for both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you guys for having us.
All right, we are back in the studio. What did you think about today's podcast, Riva?
I loved it. I thought it was so fascinating hearing about how different aspects of the military and military history and hands-on military work kind of are combined and how they can be related. I was very fascinated with Paul's work and just seeing like the day-to-day operations of a submarine. Like I had no idea.
Yeah, and I just like how they both always spoke to the human side of their work. Like it's all about, for Paul, it was, the camaraderie of, being on a submarine and being a leader. And for Zita, it was very much like telling people stories, giving people a voice that maybe didn't have as much of a voice before. I think that, the humanitarian side to what they do is super important.
And it stuck with me. They mentioned it's not about accomplishment, it's about everything you've done to get there. And I think they're so right in saying that. It's about the journey you take. And we've heard that a lot throughout our undergrad experience. Like, don't rush the journey. Like, you'll get there when it's time.
Yeah.
And I feel like seeing them being as accomplished as they are, that saying really, has some meaning behind it. And I'm excited to see, what opportunities they'll have for their future and what opportunities future honor students will have. And if you're interested in learning about these opportunities, don't forget to check out the Honor Roll newsletter and our website at usf.edu/honors for upcoming events, updates, and news. That'll do it for today's episode. The Honor Roll podcast is recorded in the Judy Genshaft Honors College at the University of South Florida, Tampa campus. Production assistance is provided by USF students Bama Shah, Nicholas Henry, and Maya Nikolsky. Thank you all so much for listening, and please do not forget to rate and review our podcast, as we really appreciate your feedback. Tune in next time to hear more honor stories and talk to more members of the Judy Genshaft Honors College. Until next time, go Bulls!